Hello, 2100 students. This is our week 4 lecture on curriculum. And in this lecture, we're going to talk a little bit about the differences between a teacher-led curriculum and a digital curriculum. We're going to talk about what makes an effective curriculum. So let's start first with what is curriculum. Our dictionary is going to say that curriculum is the subjects comprising a course of study in school or college, which is mostly true, right? So curriculum is math, science, social studies, that's curriculum. But if we boil that down even further, each unit within the social studies textbook is also curriculum. Each activity or each module is curriculum. The way that you put it together is curriculum. So curriculum is what you teach to your students. And then, of course, in this class, we also focus on instruction, which is the how you get it to your students. So we're looking at the what today. And some curriculum has changed a lot over time as we've gained more information or more knowledge. Other curriculums have stayed pretty much the same for tens, 20s, hundreds of years. And so we have to analyze, how do we adapt our curriculum? How does our curriculum change? And should we be customizing our curriculum for our students? So we're going to look at this question. What's better, a teacher-made curriculum or a digital curriculum? Obviously, there's going to be a bunch of pros and cons here, and we're not going to have a debate here with our class since we are not synchronous. But let me just go through some of the pros and the cons with you. So when we look at a teacher created curriculum, obviously the benefit is if a teacher is involved in coming up with the curriculum, it is going to meet their students' needs. The teacher knows her students or his students better than anyone. And so if a teacher works on the curriculum and decides what should be taught, you're more likely to hit the students' needs, especially if you're employing backwards design and looking at Utah state standards to come up with learning objectives, to come up with assessments, to come up with instructional strategies and learning activities. So if you're doing it in that way, the teacher is the most qualified person to decide what the curriculum is. A teacher-made curriculum can be great because you can collaborate with other teachers so that you're ensuring that all students are having their needs met, and that's certainly a benefit. And a teacher-made curriculum, another benefit to that is that if the teacher creates the curriculum, they're going to be familiar with the content, and they're going to probably be better at instruction of that content. And so teachers are going to have more ownership over that. Now, of course, the number one con in creating a curriculum from scratch takes forever. It takes so much time. And the good news is very, very few K-12 teachers will create a curriculum from scratch or even a single unit from scratch. There might be some input into what goes into each lesson within those units. But teachers almost always will have either a curriculum handed to them when they start teaching or some rough outline of what the curriculum should be. A lot of teachers use a textbook, and a textbook has the curriculum for the whole year right there. So as long as the teacher follows along, rather than creating the curriculum, the teacher then is using that curriculum to come up with lessons and learning activities within the classroom. So the big negative to a teacher-made curriculum is it takes a lot of time. And if you measure time in dollars, then it costs a lot of money, right? So if a teacher needs to have the time to put that together, whether that be through summer curriculum development workshops or throughout the year professional development days, that still takes a lot of time, which means a lot of money. Another cost is inherent with that time, it takes a lot of energy and it can burn teachers out. And so if a teacher is trying to reinvent the wheel and create everything for the first time, they're going to feel overwhelmed. There's just a lot going on. And I know a lot of you have these concerns when you start teaching. How much are you going to have to create by yourself? In most cases, and this is my limited experience teaching in a dozen or so schools, is you go to the new school, you meet with your grade level team or your content level team. They share what has been done in the past. Maybe you have a file cabinet already in the room that has lessons, that has the curriculum. You have all your textbooks up in your bookshelves already. So that's there. It's becoming familiar with the curriculum, which still takes a lot of time. and then adapting lessons. And it is hard in the first few years, even doing that. So if you're not creating a curriculum by yourself, but you're just adapting it and becoming familiar with it, that still takes a lot of time and energy. Now, let's talk about the pros and cons of the digital curriculum. Of course, the biggest pro then would be it saves you time. It's ready to go. And today, when we see digital curriculums being made, it's not just a textbook or reading resources, but it's worksheets that come along with it. It's PowerPoints that come along with it. It's software that integrates, that lets students interact with the materials. So depending on what kind of digital curriculum you get, you can have a ton of different resources that would benefit your students. And that's wonderful. And so that's a huge thing, is it can save teachers a ton of time. Now, on the flip side of that, a con for digital curriculums is often it costs a lot of money. The better curriculums, the more expensive, right? And so a big benefit is saving time. Another benefit is that it's been vetted by professionals. And so you can, usually it's going to be pretty reliable. The content's going to be accurate. It's going to be designed in a way to meet students' needs. And so that's really great. The backside to that is it's not meeting your specific students' needs. It's not customized for your classroom. So even with a digital curriculum, you might want to adapt it to your own needs for your own classroom. Another downside of a digital curriculum is it's digital. It relies on technology. And so in lower socioeconomic areas, or with limited resources in schools, you might not be able to afford it. There is that cost that comes with it. You might not have the technology to support it. And so that's a downside. A benefit of digital curriculum is it's typically been generated collaboratively. The downside, the con, is that collaboration didn't include you or anyone at your school, likely, right? And so while it has been created by a lot of people, it hasn't been created by all the people that you might want. Those are some pros and cons. Obviously, there's a lot more, and we'll get into some of those as we move along here. In the tunnel reading, I thought this was really great. An effective curriculum is critical support that guides teachers in preparing lessons and points to quality resources to help students learn. The most effective curriculums, so here are some things we've already talked about. Developed collaboratively, continuously evaluated, which is hard to do. That's going to take a lot of time, money, and energy. And improved, reflect the community's values, and align with state and national learning standards. Now let's go back to a teacher-led curriculum. Is that developed collaboratively? Typically, yes. You're working with your grade level teams or your content level teams. Is it evaluated, and can it be improved with time? Yes, if the teacher's going to put in the time. Does it reflect the community values? Yes. And does it align with state and learning standards? If it's done correctly, yes. So you can check all 4 of those boxes with a teacher generated curriculum, but it's a ton of work and constant work, right? To continually be evaluated and improved. Most of the heavy lifting happens up front, and then you just have to revisit every once in a while and be like, is it still meeting our needs? With a digital curriculum, often developed collaboratively, is it continuously evaluated and improved? Depending on the kind of technology that you're using, there might be software updates, there might be digital amendments that are given or updates done that way. So that can also check the box. Will it reflect the community's values? Likely no. So you're not going to check that box. Does it align with state and national learning standards? Probably, right? So you're going to get, you're going to purchase a curriculum that is aligned with your state standards. That's why you're going to pick it. Now, how does that work? We should take a minute to talk about how a curriculum is taken and given to schools. Most schools have a curriculum committee that you can volunteer to be on. Often there's a stipend that goes with that. So you'll meet periodically throughout the year, and you will evaluate a curriculum and decide if you should keep it or move on to something new. Now, that process is really important. As you decide maybe this curriculum isn't meeting our needs anymore, or maybe we need to go in another direction, typically what happens is you're going to have people on that committee, or maybe your administrative team will look at a bunch of different curriculum packages. So if you're looking at a digital curriculum, you're going to have different companies send you samples. Maybe they'll send you a textbook or a software package, and you're going to play around with it and see if it meets your needs, see if it's aligned with your values, see if it meets your state standards. If it's a teacher-created curriculum, then the requirement there would be finding a space and a time for teachers to get together to collaborate. Now, that's either typically going to happen over the summer or maybe the first 2 weeks before school starts as teachers come back before students. They have some time to work together, but you don't want to decide on your curriculum last minute and then teach it right away. And so this might happen throughout the year as a process. Maybe once a month you get together to work on the curriculum, to evaluate and to update. So that's kind of how that works. Now, an example that we're going to look at is a syllabus. A syllabus is kind of like a curriculum map. And another quote here from the reading says, a well-planned curriculum map may have significant impact on student progress and the quality of teachers. So, and maybe you felt this way, a good syllabus might equate to a good class, right? If things are really organized and laid out and students know what is expected of them, they're more likely to have success. And so let's look at the syllabus. Now, what goes into developing a syllabus? Lucky for you guys, I'm relatively new to teaching this class. So somebody developed an initial draft of a syllabus, handed it off to me, and I was able to go through it and create a course. So this is definitely a teacher created curriculum for this class. And I'm just going to show you just a snippet of some of the things that I did as I developed this course. So here's what was handed off to me. A syllabus that had, here we've got two different columns. One's for like a Tuesday class and a Thursday class. So we're looking at 1 week at a time here. And we're just looking at weeks 2 and weeks 3. So in weeks 2, we're looking at describing and measuring learning. On Tuesday and on Thursday, we're looking at using Bloom's taxonomy. This might look familiar to you because I adapted it, but I used much of what was here. Looking at the specific topics, can learning be measured? Bloom's taxonomy. So we just did that recently. If we come down here to the next week, what is curriculum? That's today. So we're literally looking at how we develop the curriculum for today or for this week. How our curricular units organized. That's exactly what we're doing right now, right? So then this teacher had anchors, which would be like readings or videos, and then for each of those days, and then possible things to do in the classroom for a face-to-face class. So a teach-in, and you can do that with video as well. And so those were kind of what was handed to me. You'll notice I went through all these. So I read all the articles, I watched all the videos, I considered all the learning activities and instructional strategies. And then I just made some tweaks. Obviously, my style is a little different. So I used different fonts. I put it in a way that I thought looked a little cleaner. So I could put this on an actual syllabus to give to my students. I have the weeks, I have the dates, I have the objectives on one side. So this is the entire week. Now, instead of going Tuesday on one side, Thursday on the other, I'm just doing all the objectives for the week on one side. So Tuesday, if it's twice a week, it's going to be the first 1 or 2, and then Thursday is going to be the bottom. For classes like this online class that just has 1 week, we put all the learning objectives together on one side and all the course preparation on the other side. So here I took, let's see, I have the McTighe, the Lee, and a video. And if we go back to this one, the McTighe was there, but then I didn't use this article and there weren't any other resources. So I found some new resources. You'll notice newer resources, 2023, and a video from 2021. And so I picked some newer resources that I felt helped. And this is just kind of my organizational map. Now, this doesn't show my lesson plan and what I'm going to do with all these things. I'm just showing my students, this is how you prepare for class, and this is what we're going to talk about. But that's how I developed the curriculum for these a week at a time. And it did take considerable time. Now, fortunately for you guys, I've now gone through this syllabus a few times, and I continue to make changes as I read your course preparation reflections and your lecture reflections. I decide maybe the McTighe article isn't being very helpful anymore. So I make a note of that in my syllabus. So I keep my master syllabus, and I might highlight that and say, students don't like this reading. Then when I have time, maybe I'll do it right then, or maybe I'll do it after the semester. I'm going to look up other ways to measure, to create objectives, to use Bloom's taxonomy, etc. I'm going to look up articles myself. And if I find one that's better for the McTighe, I'm going to replace it. Or if I find one that I think is just as good, but takes less time, I'm going to replace it. Or if I can find a video that's just as effective, takes less time, I'm going to replace it, right? And so that's how I'm developing the curriculum for this class. It does take considerable time, but I believe it makes the class exciting. It makes it relevant. It's up to date. It meets my students' needs. I love this model, but it takes a lot of time. Have I said that enough times yet? As a professor, we have the autonomy to change things within the course, right? And to do the things that best meet our students' needs. In a K-12 classroom, it's much more difficult to do that because you want to have fidelity within the school. So meaning if I change something for my class, the other classes like my class are also going to have to change so that we're giving our students an equitable experience. It becomes tricky. So that's one of the things I love about teaching in higher education is I do have the autonomy to make changes to do what I think is best for my students. All right, let's move on. Looking at characteristics of an effective curriculum. We've already talked about many of these, so I'm just going to quickly look at these bullet points. Adapts to an evolving world. If you use reflections like I do, you can see your student-specific needs, but it's also going to require the teacher to stay current with what's happening in their content area. And so you can't just use the same stuff for 50 years. You have to know what's happening in the world and how things are changing. It contains research-based teaching techniques, of course. So just like that first point, it's going to be like that. Encourages collaboration. That's why we looked at the various stakeholders in 1010 when you took that class, if you took that class. There are a lot of different people who impact a curriculum. It's not just the teacher. It's not just the students. We're looking at parents. We're looking at school boards. We're looking at businesses. We're looking at politicians and local things to our community. And so those all impact what happens in the curriculum. And we're going to teach different things here in the state of Utah than they might teach in Denmark because we live in a different place. We have different values. Meets the needs of the students and establishes quantifiable objectives. And of course, we want to start with that.